mixing with my career building tip, you're not that smart. Um, there's a lot of ways to look at this comment. I think in the context of an overall career, one way to look at it is no matter how much you know, there's always somebody who knows more than you. And this is coming from someone who was always an information sponge. Many years ago, over 30 years ago, well over 30 years ago, I went to Berklee College of Music, and while I was there, I took on the music production engineering program. But while I was there, I absorbed as much music knowledge as I could. I took like arranging classes, composition classes, counterpoint classes. I would just conducting everything that I could take there. I just wanted to kind of take whatever allotment of credits that I had each semester and I packed it up. I filled it out. I made sure that I could grab as much information about music as I could while I was there, in addition to all the focused work that I was doing in music production and engineering and all of that. And when I left and got a job working in studios, got a job working at Right Track Studios initially in New York. When I first got there, I saw a whole ton of gear that I had never seen before. SSL console, all kinds of, AMS delays and reverbs, that high-end stuff that I had never seen before. And what I used to do is I would make photocopies of all the manuals, and I would read a couple of pages or a chapter from a manual about some piece of gear in my book bag, on the train heading back and forth to work every day. And while I was at the studio, if it was late at night, I would be the one that would be pouring through the SSL manual, kind of reading how all these things work, reading it over and over again, just absorbing information, trying to get things. But no matter how much I learned, there was always someone there that, could add depth and meaning to anything I knew. So I could read a fact, but they could explain it, more from an experiential level. And there's always somebody who knows something more than what you know. So at any given point, some people may come up to me and say, like, so much and all this other stuff. And I remember recently at the NAMM convention, I was at a party where someone was sort of mentioning this to me, just, looking at my discography and some of the people that I worked with. And just literally like 15 feet away, there was a big table, and around that table was Andrew Sheps, there was Jacques Joseph Puig, there was Eddie Kramer, and a whole bunch of people there. And I looked over and I pointed to that table, and it's like over at that table is probably 1,000 hit records. It was over like 10 people, like amazing engineers that have just been working on records way longer than I have and have had a much broader sense of experience. And when you look at it from that perspective, there is a saying that kind of goes along with this. It's like you have one mouth and two ears, use them proportionally, which means that whenever you walk into a situation, it's more about getting a read on what other people know, listening, right? Really paying attention to what people have to say. Sometimes I've learned things from people who have relatively very little experience, but they've stumbled across something, some bit of knowledge that maybe I wasn't really aware of. Maybe it's how to use a particular piece of gear or a new plugin or something that I haven't seen before. And so for me, there's always something to learn, no matter who it is that you're there with, who it is that you meet, even if it's something that you learn not to do by watching people make mistakes in the most dreadful way. And you look at it and you say, that is the most disastrous thing I've ever seen in my life. I'll never do that. And that was a big, broad teaching experience for me as an assistant engineer. I always prided myself on really knowing every piece of equipment in the room inside and out, every facet of it. So any question that came my way, I would be the expert. I always wanted to be the expert in the room. But with all my knowledge, I was still sitting there in front of people that were 100 times better engineers than I was at that time, because I was still learning the art. I knew the equipment, I knew all the technical details, but I didn't have the practical experience that these people had. And so there was so much enriched knowledge that I never would have gotten if I had just sort of gotten an ego and said, like, oh, I know how to use this and I know how to use that and I'm a great this and I'm a great that. So it's important to kind of keep your head on straight about things and realize that, if you're not that smart, there's no pressure on you. And then you can kind of relax into your situations. And then when somebody asks you about your experience, then you can speak from a pure place, someplace that is not ego driven, a place that just passes along information and helps the person who's asking from you. And then listening to how they respond and listening to what it is that they have to say, whether you agree with it or not. There's always something that you can pick up and that you can learn. So there's a mixing with my career building tip. You're not that smart. And the way that you get smarter is by understanding that you're not that smart. That's a mixing with my career building tip of the week.